Fallout, Dust to Dust by Hunter Owens. Prologue. Darkness. You get used to it after a while. Its distinct lack of anything and feeling of emptiness. When you've lived your entire life underground, it becomes comforting, you could say. In any event, the darkness in Vault 58 is everywhere, in the halls, in your rooms, and in the corners of your imagination. The lights in the hallway emit pure, uncorrupted, amazing white beams throughout the blackness, and you can see all the minuscule particles as they float throughout the air. The vault smells of tile cleaner, and when the light hits the shining floor, it gleams magnificently, occasionally sending streaks of colour from its buffed face. The Vault 58 is an industrial marvel. It had preserved life stably since the Great Nuclear War of 2077, when Chinese had deployed intercontinental ballistic missiles for an unknown reason, and the US had retaliated with its own arsenal. On Saturday, October 23rd, 2077, nuclear fire ignited the sky, and it was thought to be the end of the world. But the human race is not extinguished so easily. Many people took refuge within massive underground shelters called vaults, much like this one. My name is Jason Gibson, and this is my story. Chapter 1. I am the senior member of the Vault 58 janitorial staff, which is the fancy way of saying I am the janitor. The only janitor, I might add. My average day was typically consisting of scrubbing floors, and occasionally scrubbing floors. But in all seriousness, my responsibility consists of keeping vomit off of the floors, maintaining the walls to keep rust from forming, changing the occasional fluorescent light, and keeping the sill from the reactor door and the lower level intact to prevent the leak of radiation onto the air shafts. I had just finished this when I decided that it was about time to retire to my quarters for the night. I began to walk back to my small, dingy little vault room. No matter what I do, my room always seems to be in disrepair. This time it was the rising door. As I hit the button labelled open, the button stuck in and came back out again. The door made no attempt to open. I banged my fist on the door in a fist of frustration. I looked around in my pockets for a set of bobby pins and wrench. I had been training to use on old locks from cabinets and things that people had lost the keys for. I looked around for the manual key port on the sliding door, typically located on the bottom right. I found it and pried open the little shield that covered it, and began to work. It was a relatively easy lock, and I smiled in satisfaction, having successfully picked and opened my first door. Inside my room was a refrigerator, a couch, a radio that hadn't worked in God knows how long, a musty bed, dirty vault jumpsuits and boots on the floor, and last but not least, another door. This door leading to my janitor closet, which always smelled like piss and vomit, no matter what I tried to do. I lifted my Pip-Boy Model 3000A as I flopped onto the dingy old couch and looked at the screen for a time. I tuned into the Vault radio station, which had played the same track since the war over 200 years ago. It was a treat if you heard the DJ occasionally. She was a frail-sounding old woman who happened to be born into the family whose ancestors was a pre-war DJ. He was long dead, however. But this time something was different. I didn't recognise the voice. I began to listen more intently. "Hello, Vault Dwellers. I regret to inform you that..." The young woman stiffed a sob. "My mother, the Vault DJ, has passed away at 87 years old due to a heart condition that is hereditary for our family," she sniffed. "But I will now be taking over as the official Vault 58 DJ. The old DJ's name had been Agatha, and she had been the radio DJ as long as I could remember. But in reality, it would be the same music as it had always been, just a new, younger voice to speak every once in a while. So, in retrospect, a new DJ didn't mean too much. I was still sad to hear old Agatha had died, though. She had become sort of an icon that people would wait anxiously to hear, even though she really only said things like, "And here is another track by Billie Holiday," or "Here is another classic tune from the days before the war." So I will be hosting a party with music, food and drinks for any Vault dweller over the age of 16. is invited, said the new DJ. Oh, well. Sounding rather excited about this shindig she had put together, the party will be on 6th of July at 9 o'clock p.m. Be there or be square. I decided it was time to get some sleep. I had a long day of scrubbing floors and unlocking cabinets for people too stupid to hold on to their own keys. I grudgingly rose from the musty old couch, which spewed dust particles out from itself as I rose. As I walked towards my small bedroom area in the left side corner, I began to unzip my jumpsuit. I jabbed the button with my middle finger as I cracked my back and twisted about. As the door slid open, I began to remove my Vault issue leather boots and jumpsuit and flopped onto the bed. My bed smelled of dust and old cloth. I was never able to quite make it right, so I gave up on making it at all. I just use an old quilt that has been in my family for years, while the Vault issue sheets and comforter, if you can call it that, lay in the corner of my room. I'm a very shitty janitor. There's a reason my room is so dirty and dank. It's because I clean all day, and when I get home the last thing I want to do is clean some more. So I live in Vault 58's self-proclaimed pigsty, and I couldn't give two shits either. Chapter 2. My alarm clock ripped me from my dreamless sleep, and I rubbed my eyes furiously. I had to restrain myself from smashing the clock because the equipment store had begun to question my excuse of them giving me faulty clocks. I rose from my bed and sifted through my utility jumpsuits, looking for one that was clean enough to wear again. I would probably have to go to the laundry room on sub-level 2 soon. I hate going there. I always feel incredibly awkward having to stand there in my underwear waiting for the ancient wash machines to finish my jumpsuit. But it was a necessary evil. Seeing as me being the janitor, I couldn't look like a slob, not in public at least. Victory. I successfully found a jumpsuit without too many stains, and it didn't smell like a garbage disposal chute. I slipped on the damn jumpsuit, then fumbled around with my boots, trying to get them bloused correctly up to the Vault code. For some reason, all residents of Vault 58 had to have their boots bloused military style. This basically just means you have to fumble around with the elastic things with little hooks on each end, then tuck your pants up inside them and pull the neat little bundle thing down to the top of your boots. This was always a bitch because your leg hair tends to get caught within the blousing strap, and you always pull it down, rends the hair from your flesh with it. Time to start the day. I walked over to the piss-smelling janitor closet and wrenched my bucket and mop out of the corner with a distasteful yank. As the mop came from the corner, it smashed into the little desk thing that must have formed one of my long-dead relatives, because it had our family name engraved on its surface. As the mop struck it, a small compartment popped out of its side, and inside said compartment lay a notebook and several pieces of paper. I picked up the papers, and my Pip-Boy auto-labelled them as Last Testaments, Experiments, and Read This If You Found It. I wondered what the documents were about, but before I had the chance to pursue them, my buzzer rang on my door. I groaned and cracked my back as I stood and walked to the door. I opened the door and began to say, "We're closed, come back," but I was cut off when a very attractive young woman stood before me. I had no idea who she was. I've only ever seen her in the cafe and sometimes milling about in the hallways. She had shorter hair, about to her shoulders, and it was a dark chestnut. She had it pulled into a very neat ponytail. She had bright cherry lips and stood more leaned to her left side with her hand on her waist. Well, shit, what am I supposed to say now? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realise you were closed. I can come back, she said and started to turn. Don't let her leave, you idiot. My brain snapped back to life as I said, perhaps too enthusiastically. Oh, we're not closed. I just woke up and thought it was earlier. Nailed it. She looked puzzled but accepted my ramblings as truth and turned back to face me. Well, you, the janitor and maintenance man, right? She said. My mind was racing. I'd probably watched way too many pornos that started out this same way. I tried my hardest to push the images of her under her jumpsuit out of my mind as I answered, "Yep, that's me." Well, my equipment has been acting up and I desperately needed to fix it before the 6. Fix with love. No. I again pushed those images out of my mind as I stammered. Well, I can take a look. I'll have it fixed lickety-split. I had no idea what equipment she needed fixed, and that was the last thing on my mind right now. Anyhow, probably just a broken toaster or something. That's fabulous, she said, and did a little hop. Shut up, brain. Not what I need to think about right now. Lead the way then, I said, and she did just that. We began to walk down the iron-gated floors to one of the residential halls. After about a minute of following her and trying not to stare at her ass, we arrived and I read the fine engraving on her door. Vault 58 disc jockey. It read, well, I should have realised that earlier, but old love brain didn't bother thinking about who else would desperately need electric work done before the 6. Well, I know little if anything about this kind of equipment that's usually left to the technicians or the pit boy guy, but I wouldn't dare tell her that. She fumbled around with her keys, and I noted she too suffered from a failure to keep them in hand like everyone else in this vault, as she dropped them on the ground. She then bent down to get them, and it took all of my self-restraint not to stare at her ass again. But eventually I caved. Thank God she stood up quickly. After she found her keys, she jammed the key into the small key slot on the bottom right, sort of an inconvenience if you ask me. In any event, the door quickly and efficiently slid up and we stepped into the room. Well, welcome to my humble abode, she said, smiling friendly. The walls had posters of many pre-war artists, the most notable being Bing Crosby. The ink spots and Dean Domino. She also had a wall that seemed completely dedicated to being a radio personality. It was spotless. The microphone sat a short distance from a comfy-looking chair with a big headrest, with Profly DJ chairs embroidered in gold on its red leather surface. There was a huge amount of records and record players on the wall of DJ. I noticed that there was some sort of arm coming out of the wall that would switch records occasionally. My problem is the Spin Master stabilizer seems to have some sort of malfunction in the gyro circuits. I've tried rewiring the code on the tape-to-tape computers over yonder. She gestured to yet another computer while I nodded as if I had any idea what she was talking about. But I'm plumb out of ideas in any case. I was wondering if you had any ideas as to what I could do. I had absolutely no idea what to do. I had almost no experience in electronic gizmos and equipment. I prefer physical items such as locks and other such things. Well, fuck, what the hell do I say now? Have you tried turning it off and back on again? I said weakly. She stared at me for a moment and then burst into laughter, but stopped laughing as she saw that I wasn't laughing. You can't be serious. How are you the maintenance man if you don't know anything about electronic equipment? She exclaimed. I put on a fake smile and tried to summon off of my charm. Not much. And said, of course I'm not serious. What kind of maintenance man would I be if I didn't know how to fix electric machines? I'd be a shitty janitor, which is what I am. She smiled again. Well, have a look then. I'll be in my kitchen making some tea. Would you like some? She said. I was too nervous to drink. No thanks, miss, I said, realising that I still don't know her name. Please, call me Jill, she said, smiling friendly. She turned and walked to the kitchen, and I again tried not to stare at her ass. As soon as she was gone, I dug into my pocket, looking for a magazine. The magazine I was looking for was a copy of Dean's Electronics, particularly the one on Spin Masters. Success! I found it and began to skim through the articles until I found what I was looking for. The Spin Master series and you. The article detailed many of the problems the Spin Master series had. I skimmed until I found one about the gyros and how they could become destabilized and could be fixed by tightening them and oiling them to prevent damage. So I did just that and flipped the on switch. The machine sprung to life and began to play a Billie Holiday track. The title was Maybe. Jill must have heard the track play because she entered the room with a huge smile on her face. "You did it!" She ran up and hugged me and stepped back. "Oh, thank you so much. What was wrong with it?" she asked. I tried to recall what the article had said. The gyros were loose and needed to be tightened, and I also oiled them up to keep them running smooth. I said, "That's not the only thing I'm thinking about oiling up." "Shut up, brain." "Well, thank you, Mr. Janitor," she said with a smile. Without thing, I burst out and said, "Call me Jason, please." She chuckled. "Oh, thank you, Jason. Say, are you going to go to that party on the 6th? Chapter 3. About 2 hours later, I found myself back to work in the tunnel rat, once again scrubbing vomit from the stained old floors. But this time, instead of having the bored, disgusted face I normally wore during my workdays, I wore a smile upon my face after my encounter with the DJ earlier. She'd invited me to the little shindig she had put together. I hadn't originally been planning to attend, but since I'd been invited by perhaps the most attractive woman in the vault, I couldn't refuse. After I'd finished the floor, I remembered those documents I found in the old wooden cabinet-like thing. I retreated to my quarters to read the notes in peace, without risk of being interrupted by some moron in the vault. The walls on the way to my room were primarily grey, with a yellow line leading to the labs and sick bay, a blue line leading to security, and a red line leading to maintenance and janitorial. Seeing as the janitor closet is within my room, I essentially had a line leading straight to my room. The walls were also beginning to rust along the seams, which gave the already dank vault halls a sort of malevolent look to them. I reached the end of the red line and made it to my room. I jabbed the button, and the door sluggishly slipped up and into place. I strode into the room and flopped down on the dank couch and raised my Pip-Boy arm and began to turn the knobs until I found the note marked Experiments and began to sift through it. Subject D02 has begun to exhibit the early signs of mental degradation due to the treatments. Dr. Harper has instructed us to decrease the dosage from 21 millilitres to 20 millilitres, seeing as the compound 3 has proven detrimental to the subject's mental state beyond the amount. However, subject D05 has been exhibiting heightened sight, smell, hearing, increased mental capacity, and exponential muscle growth. However, D05's bone structure has been weakened to the point of immobility. This is likely to be a side effect of the increase in all of D05's other physical attributes and the D05's natural calcium deficiency. This will be a lesson in choosing our next subject. All female subjects from E1 to E8 had the same reactions to compound 3. Exponential growth in all attributes, followed by the bursting of blood vessels and death. This is an incredibly terrible side effect, seeing as only male subjects have survived the needles to say, "Can't reproduce." In order for us to create the super soldier needed to retake up the outside world, they need to be the ability to reproduce. But the majority of our efforts have resulted in failure and the death of our subjects, so, as the saying goes, shit rolls downhill. And when Dr. Harper gets upset, I get upset. And when I'm upset, we have problems. So tell your team that if you don't produce a new, less unstable compound, your team and yourself will be our next group of test subjects. What the fuck? I mumbled to myself. This was an outrage. The labs have been experimenting on people. I sat up abruptly and began to read the note entitled, "Read this if you found it." My name is Dr. Jeff Hansen, and I am the team leader of Research Team 2 in the Vault 58 Science Lab. We've been working on compounds from creating a new breed of humans, and we succeeded. Except now, Dr. Harper has gone completely insane. He sealed all of the research teams 2 and 3 in the containment lab and deployed the liquid nitrogen deterrents on them. With research team 1, he locked them in the chamber with the failed subjects. Not all of them were dead either. Oh God, one of them tore Susie apart like she was paper. And I did what anyone would do. I ran. I made it to the janitor's room, and now I'm in the closet. Now they are at the door. I'm locking this note in this wooden thing on the floor, along with some lab notes and my last testament. They're in here. The note stopped right there. I was in a state of shock. I felt horrified and numb by the thought of what had happened in my own room sometime in the not-so-distant past. I flicked the knobs to the last testament's note and began to read. To my mother, goats, my room, clothing and photo albums. To my beautiful wife, my accounts and life work. And to my son, I leave my old baseball bat and glove. Have fun, sport. I love you all. Goodbye. My heart broke for Jeff Henson right there. Even though he had been involved in such terrible things, I felt for him. I had to do something, but I had no idea what. But then I realised what I had to do, and as much as I disliked the man, I had to tell the overseer. I sprung from the couch and strode to the door with a purpose. I jabbed the button, and for once it opened as it was built to do, quickly. I literally ran down the hallways towards the overseer's office. I was barreling down the hall with a head of steam when I accidentally ran into Jill. She was carrying several records which tumbled to the ground along with her and myself. I landed on top of her, each other, and we were face to face. I didn't even have time to have dirty thought before I shot up off of her again and began to charge down the hall towards the overseer's office once again. "Jason, what the hell?" screamed Jill. I didn't respond or even acknowledge her comment. I just kept running. "Jason, stop!" she hollered, running after me. "What's wrong, Jason?" I stopped abruptly and realised I had tears welling in my eyes. I stumbled and fell on my arse, overwhelmed. "Jason, what is wrong?" she asked, concerned. Those sick fucks. I can't. I grabbed my hair, then hit my head once. They killed them. I have to tell the overseer, I stammered. "Who killed who, Jason?" she said, concerned. "Dr. Harper. He killed them. All of those people," I wailed, banging a fist on the wall. This drew a look from a solitary woman walking down the hall who scurried away looking worried. "Dr. Harper," said Jill. "What does he have to do with this?" This caught me by surprise, and I looked her in the eye. "Where is he?" I screamed. "Hey, look at me, Jason. Don't do anything stupid. Just go to the overseer and we'll sort this out, okay?" she said. "Where is he?" I howled. Listen to me, Jason. Quit your blubbering and listen to me," she bellowed. I was again caught off guard, this time by her gruffiness in this dire a situation. "We're going to the overseer and clearing the shit up. Check?" she said, articulating every syllable. I was in shock as I nodded. "Good. Then let's go," she said, extending a hand for me to grab to help pull myself up. We began to walk down the hall, and I downloaded the files from my Pip-Boy to hers, and she read them over as we walked. Her face contorted every emotion from fury to sorrow as we neared his office. We finally reached his office on the atrium level and knocked on his door. We heard a muffled voice call from the other side say, "Come in." The door rocketed open and we burst in, both of us talking quickly and at the same time. The overseer glanced at us and sighed as he took his feet off his desk and waited for us to finish rambling. "One at a time, if you would. Gibson, please start over and speak like a civilized human," said the overseer, with a sarcastic edge. "I think it would be better if you read it, overseer," I said, beginning to download the files to his Pip-Boy. He began to read, occasionally glancing up at us. The tension was palpable in the office, at least between Jill and I. The overseer was actually leaned back in his chair again. He cleared his throat and said, "Where did you find these documents?" I was taken aback for the third time today. In an old wooden cabinet in the janitor's closet. The same as mentioned in the note." "Yes, the same cabinet," I said. He leaned down and pressed the intercom button and said, "Officer Thomas, get in here. We have a situation." "Yes, sir," I heard Officer Thomas say over the intercom. About 5 minutes of awkward silence later, Officer Thomas entered the room and saluted the overseer, who lazily returned the salute. These two seem to have found some files that detail certain events happening in our labs. At this, Officer Thomas glanced at us and allowed the overseer to continue. Bring them to security. You're bringing us to get more guards? Asked Jill. No, said the overseer. You know too much. Okay, my initial thoughts on this story. Character development needs a little bit of work, though the characters have got good traits, and they, you know, the janitor made me laugh, Jason made me laugh, you know, he was a funny character. Jill is the sex icon, and I can see being quite the wild character. It definitely has potential as a story. I noticed a couple of spelling errors. I know you said that it's tunnel rat, not tunnel snake, or snake tunnel, that thing. So I picked up on that quite quickly when I saw it. There was a couple of spelling mistakes in there, nothing major, but obviously if you want, you know, you go back and some of the grammar definitely needs working on. Some of the things were worded slightly wrong. Obviously, I did pick up on those. Some of it I actually read out as it was said, as it was written, so you might pick up on it that way. And one of them, it's a good story, don't get me wrong, I'm not slating this story, it is actually a good story. It needs work, like anything, but it's a brilliant story. My suggestion, however, would be your paragraphs. Your paragraphs for a whole chapter is literally just one paragraph. There's no spacing, there's no separation, there's no breathers in there in that way. You know, there's no way if I turned my back for a couple of seconds to look away and then came back to it, I wouldn't know where the hell I was because it was so packed. But it doesn't make it a bad story, it just needs that little bit of spacing so that it's easy reading, because there's nothing worse than having it all jumbled together and you're having to really quickly move through it. Bearing in mind I'm recording it, so I'm having to read really quickly, trying to find my line. But apart from that, it's a good story. It needs work, but it's a great story. I didn't find anything majorly wrong. Obviously, characters, like the chapters were quite short as well. The chapters do need work on. You know, they need to be longer. However, what I would suggest there is possibly going back, just making them a little bit longer, maybe even taking some of chapter 2 and putting it in chapter 1. I'd actually congregate the two together. And then that would be chapter 1, and then chapter 2, make it, you know, roughly about 2 pages, I would say. Roughly about 2 pages, maybe 1.5, but sort of 1 page, you know, or maybe a bit longer. But apart from that, it was a good story. I didn't notice anything else wrong with it. It's just, oh yeah, no, character spacing. When 2 characters are speaking, they have their own separate line, you know, their own line. You know, one character speaks, move it down a line, that character speaks, another character speaks, move it down a line. It gets a bit tedious, but if you've got more than one character speaking and they're all on the same line, it can confuse a reader as to who's actually speaking at the time unless you point it out properly. However, it's not the correct way of writing. But that's just a nitpicky thing on my side. But in general, it was a nice story. So thank you for sending it to me, Calamity. You know, you're a good writer. You have potential to be a really good writer. Just need a little bit of work. That's all. Other than that, I can't fault your story whatsoever. So I hope to see more of it in the future as well. So I hope you enjoyed. This is my first review, so I'm sorry if I've missed anything out. However, there will be things in the description. If I've missed anything out, I will put it in the description. Other than that, I hope you've enjoyed. See you later, guys.